Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. David Fradin joining us here, the president at Spice Catalyst. That's spicecatalyst.com. Hailing live from Los Gatos, California. He is here as an entrepreneur, a very successful man who has a lot of knowledge, a great background working in the markets and the places he has, and the 5 keys to product success. We've been working on this. He's helping consulting and to train. And so he can really help you and your company. And we're excited that he joins us again here today. How's it going, David?
Going great. Glad to be with you again.
Same here, and excited for today's show and conversation. Just a quick overview. Obviously, if you are tuning in today, if you haven't seen our last 8 podcasts, you can go review them. Of course, go to your where you hear your podcasts and check in. But we're on today about product success. And we're going to get to some of those questions, like what are the key components of a successful market strategy for new products? He's here to review this, go over this. But before we start that, tell us more about you and, of course, the work that you can do and the people listening today, who may be able to benefit from your work, your books, your training, and so much more.
Well, I teach product management and product marketing, or as I prefer to call it, product success management, to large companies and small and medium companies worldwide. My number one client is Cisco, and I've trained almost half of all the product managers at Cisco, not only in the United States, but also in Europe and in India and in China. And through all this work and the books that I've written and the courses I've written, I've learned what the 5 keys are to product success and how companies can be successful if they follow those 5 keys.
All right. Well, we're excited that you're here. And by the way, we're opening up the phone lines 631-307-4010. If you have any questions, that's 631-307-4010. Feel free to call in at any time. In the meantime, let's start. So, what about the questions about product success? Let's start with those. What are some of those key components, would you say, that makes up a really good market strategy for those new products out there?
It's important to recognize that a market is a place where people go to buy your product. Marketing is the effort to get people to go to that market. So think of a market like a grocery store, and marketing is what it takes.
Mm-hmm.
The weekly ads to get people to go into the store and buy stuff. So the key components of a successful market strategy, and that's the first part of the SPICE, the keys to successful products. The S in the word SPICE, hence my company name, Spice Catalyst, is to have a product market strategy. The first key component is have a set of values, have a vision for your company, and then roll that up into a mission statement so that their products fit within that brand, that vision, and that mission, and that vision for your company. Then it's understanding what it is that your customer wants to do. It's understanding what their use cases are for the product, what problems are your customers trying to solve. Then there's doing a market analysis and a competitive analysis. Take a look at current and potentially future technologies and insights, the personas of your target customer, your market size, your market segments, your target markets, your total available market. And that gets all rolled up into the value proposition for your product or your service. It enables you to do product positioning, which is a position in the mind of your prospective customer as to where your product fits. Then evaluate opportunities and risks, and then start doing innovation on that product or service. And all innovation is being able to do something faster, better, quicker, with higher quality, with style, and or at a lower cost. That then gets rolled into one of the product's features, its advantages over the competitors, and the benefits that are accrued to the user, to the customer. A pricing strategy, a budget, return on investment analysis, a product roadmap so that you can extend the product line over time, and then that results in a product portfolio. So those are the key components of a product market strategy. And in my book, Successful Product Design and Management Toolkit,
Mm-hmm.
which Wiley published, and it's used in executive MBA programs in a couple
Mm.
prestigious universities in India. I go into these in much more detail, and actually there's 32 components to a successful market strategy for a product.
Well, thanks for sharing some of those with us today. And by the way, go to spicecatalyst.com. You can find out his books there. Just Google his name, of course, David Fradin. Everything pops up there. Let's talk about how you identify and can also prioritize unmet customer needs when you are developing or someone's developing a new product.
I go down to the lowest level, and that is understanding what it is that your customer wants to do. Others talk about jobs to be done, but I don't think that's granular enough. Then others have written about outcome-based innovation, which is even less granular. So, in terms of what a customer wants to do, is what do they want to do? Why do they want to do it? Where do they want to do it? How do they want to do it? What's standing in their way? How important is it? How salient is it for them to get that thing done? And then how satisfied are they with the current way of doing things?
Mm-hmm.
Then you can do a formula, which is in my books, between the importance and satisfaction and prioritize on that. So, for example, if you find something that everybody says is a 10 out of a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest of importance in terms of wanting to get it done, and they are very unsatisfied with the current way of getting it done, maybe it has a 2 or a 3, that kind of item would have a higher priority in terms of development over an item that has a high importance, but also has a high satisfaction, which means they're not in that great of a need for your particular product.
Mm-hmm.
The key there is to identify 15 unmet needs. And once you've identified it, that's when the window for your market has opened for your product or your service. And then as those 15 unmet needs are met by other competitors, then you convert to what the Boston Consulting Group calls a cash cow. Don't invest anything more in research and development of the product or service and just try to maximize profits.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Anything else you want to add to that before we continue?
Nope, that's it.
Awesome. Let's move on down here to our next question. And by the way, David Fradin is his name, spicecatalyst.com. Don't forget to look us up and check him out. And of course, the lines are open 631-307-4010. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out about his book, about his market strategies. Any question, of course, you can ask 631-307-4010. So, how can companies effectively use customer observations to drive innovation?
Well, I say you find out what it is that you want what your customer wants to do by first observing them, then interviewing them, then surveying a larger selection of a sample, and if you have big data and analytics available to use that data. So in the case of observation, a classic story is that you can't really ask a customer what they want or what they need in terms of the solution. You can ask them what they want or what they need in terms of the problem that they're trying
Hmm.
what it is that they're trying to do. So the story is that Henry Ford in Dearborn, Michigan, not far from where I grew up in Detroit, went out on the street and asked people if they would like to have a car. And they said, no, I don't want to have a car. I just want to have a faster horse. Well, if he had sat on a stoop of one of the saloons in Dearborn with his beer in his hand, he would notice people whipping their horses with sticks to get through town faster, or to try to get their goods in their wagons to market faster. So they did not know that this solution of a car existed. And in fact, that's probably why the first automobile was not named an automobile or a car. It was named a horseless carriage. And
That's right. You told me that.
So you pick up these insights on what customers want to do by observation. There are stories where Steve Jobs, after he introduced the iPhone, would hide in the bushes outside the Palo Alto Apple store and just observe people going and coming, and to begin to understand and use as part of his vision for the future of the product what it is that people and companies want to do.
And by the way, you've been working, obviously, you mentioned Steve Jobs. You've worked with him in the past, haven't you?
Well, I
Just
worked around him in the past.
just bring up, if you don't mind, a little of that background with all you've done, Hewlett Packard, Apple. You've been a lot of places. It's always good to hear.
When I was at Apple, there was two Steve Jobs. The first one that was at Apple that was pretty arrogant and self enamored, and then the second Steve Jobs that came back to Apple. who had corrected the problems that he had the first time he was there. One of the problems he had is he was afraid to obsolete his own products. So he tried to cancel the product line that I was just hired to manage the Apple III. And I had to do some things to get around him in order to make sure that the product got to market and that the 75,000 customers out there that had Apple IIIs were not dumped by the company and
Mm-hmm.
remained loyal to the company. And in doing so, running it as a cash cow, I was able to make enough profits to help fund the development of the Macintosh and keep somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500 employees at Apple employed as a result of the profits that I was making.
Wow. Oh my goodness. And by the way, where were you born? Just curious, where were you born and raised?
Uh, Detroit,
Did you say Detroit?
Detroit, pronounced Detroit.
Ah, got it. All right. Thank you so much. All right. Wow. Fascinating. This man, his background, and all he's accomplished. It's so modest, so down to earth. And that's what we love about you. And, we've been here talking for the past, 2 months and getting to know each other. Wait, is it 2 or 3 months at this point? I'm not even sure. But always fascinating, full of so much insight. And I know you're really just love helping, people and companies. And that's what we're doing here today. So we just talked a few moments ago about some of these successful products and strategies, shall I say. And, we want to know about customer observations and really how do companies take, what people are saying into account for, what they're doing next, how they're driving innovation.
Well, higher quality. And then in the case of like the Apple Watch with style, some of the first early Apple Watches came out that cost $10,000, and people love to pay that kind of money if they have that kind of money, just to show off the fact that they're prestigious with this expensive Apple Watch, which at the time did nothing more than tell you what time it was.
Mm-hmm.
Although one of its great value propositions is to monitor your health on a continuous basis. So, by observing what people do, you can then begin to identify ways of doing things faster and better. So, for example, right now, if I wanted to find people on LinkedIn that were interested in product success, I would have to take a whole lot of time poking through each of everybody's profiles and guessing whether or not they might be interested in that. Well, I could foresee some artificial intelligence bots becoming available, which will repeat that task for me faster and probably more accurately than I could. And I could conceive of the next generation, for example, of innovation in artificial intelligence starting next year is the ability to put together an agent that will go out and do a repetitive task for you, interacting with websites, and maybe even getting to the point of how helping you pick alternatives for that product or service that you wish to buy from the company that will give you the best service and give you the best price and the best delivery. And then you just sit there and make the decision if you agree with that recommendation for that kind of purchase. So that's an example of observing what people are doing every day and then applying or deploying artificial intelligence to enable those things to be done faster or better with higher quality.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And also want to remind everyone at this time, please feel free to call in 631-307-4010. And if you want to reach out to David directly, how do we do so?
Bye.
Oh, you are breaking up. One more time, David. This happens a lot. Let's do spicecatalyst.com and hopefully we'll hear you again. That's spicecatalyst.com. David, are you with us? Can't hear you. David Fradin. That's Dave at spicecatalyst.com. I can tell you that until we hear him again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. There you go. Beautiful. Where do we leave off? So let's see. Now I lost my place. The role. Gut instinct, how that plays with product development and, when you compare that to the data driven type of decisions.
Well, you have to have some gut vision. That was one of the great things about Steve Jobs is he could see what the personal computer business was going to be like about 6 years ahead of time and project out to that. So if let's say you're having frustrations with your Windows computer, you're trying to figure out how to shut it down, and you learn later that you click on start to stop it. That's not very intuitive. So
Mm-hmm.
gut instinct is to make it intuitive, make the user interface, the user experience as seamless and as easy as possible. For example, I just got a email today from Amazon saying that I could run a promotion on my books, and all I had to do is to click on the submit a promotion, and Amazon knows what books I have on Amazon, and then it said, okay, pick the book and pick the price and pick submit. So now they're going to be available at a lower cost for the first 15 days of January on Amazon as part of a sale. So they figured out what it is that authors want to do in terms of selling their books, and they simplified the whole thing.
Wow. Oh my goodness. And hold on. 631. Oh, we got a call. Hello. Welcome to the show. You are live on the line. Who's this? Hello, hello. David Fradin's live on the line. Try us back 631-307-4010 if you can hear us. All right. Sorry. Go ahead. Continue, David. Thought we had a
Well,
caller. Come on, call back.
I'm ready for the next question. I should just mention the last few weeks, Comcast has been redoing their network here
Oh,
in Valley, and I've had a lot of outages as a result of that.
oh,
So that's
maybe that's what it is. All right, perfect. Thank you. What about corporate values and how they impact long-term product success and company longevity, would you say?
Well, when I was writing my book a few years ago, Building and Sailing Great Products, I knew of the importance of corporate values to long-term company success. So I went back and I examined the 1965 Fortune 500 list of companies worldwide.
Hmm.
And I was familiar with many of those companies because I had raised money from them for my student organization, the Federation of Americans Supporting Science and Technology. So I made three columns. One is, did these companies back then have values? Second, did they follow their values? And third, are they in business today? And about 300 of them either didn't have values or didn't follow the values that they stated, and they weren't in business anymore. So the nice thing about having values and the things that I liked about it at HP, called the HP Way, and Apple values, is when we all went into a room to make a decision about something related to the product or the service, we are all coming from the same place. So if one company is going to value empathy for the customer like Apple does, versus another company that emphasizes profits at all costs, and the people have different values as they go into that decision making, the best decisions are not going to come out of that particular meeting. So that's why values are so important. I also found that values are important to an individual, and that if they choose to go to work for an organization, to make sure that that organization has the same kinds of values that they have. And if they do, they'll tend to thrive and get promoted. If they don't, they'll probably get fired, and that will be a mercy killing, or they'll quit and they'll be happier afterwards because of the conflict between their values and their organization's values will be ended when they move on to the next thing.
Oh, and sometimes going into an employer, you think their values may be the same as yours, and then you find that out the hard way. But you got to also go through it, and sometimes that's the case. It's happened numerous times to myself, and I'm sure many people out there. But time to move on and find, grow in a sense, and find something that suits you better. So, how does David Fradin define a product success manager? Would you mind sharing that?
Well, I don't like the title product manager because most people don't understand what it is that you do. And I've been running a campaign to get people to start using the term product success manager because they're principally responsible for the success of the product.
Okay.
And I also advocate going back to the origins of the product manager, which was at Hewlett Packard in 1938. And it was based upon a memo that was written by a brand manager at Procter and Gamble. And the brand manager was adapted to become the product manager. And the brand manager had authority over paying for the market research, for paying for the marketing materials, for paying for the advertising, so forth. But somehow the job description has evolved that the product manager has all the responsibility but no authority. So I advocate going back to that. And then the product manager must be sure that the product aligns with the corporate strategy and is always focused on an outcome-based approach.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And also, what would you say, success? How do you measure success? Did you want to kind of deal with that?
Yeah, some people say the success of the product is its profits or its gross revenues or its number of units sold. But I'd like to suggest some other things like a net promoter score for satisfaction. I think you'll find that people that shop at Apple and shop at Amazon have very high levels of satisfaction. I bought something the other day from Amazon. I wanted to return it 2 or 3 clicks later. Then I get a QR code, take it down to the local Whole Foods grocery store, hand it to them. Don't have to box it up. Don't have to find some tape to close up the box. Just hand them the actual product. They scan my QR code, and within an hour or two, I have a refund, no questions asked. You compare that to other buying and returning experiences that one has had throughout one's lifetime, and that is so easy and so satisfying. I try to do almost all of my shopping on Amazon, for example. Another measurement of success is overall customer satisfaction. Another way to look at it is if, let's say, you have a service on the internet, how many active users do you have, and how rapidly are the number of active users increasing or decreasing? You've got a problem if it's decreasing, and you're trying to have it always accelerating and increasing. So the rate of that acceleration of customer acceptance is another key factor that leads to long-term satisfaction and success. Another factor is retention. A lot of companies have programs where they get you to sign up for a trial, say it's a
Hmm.
7-day trial, and then how many of people are converted from that
Wow.
7-day free trial to paying for that subscription, and how long do they remain paying for that subscription? And that's related to another factor called churn. What kind of turnover is there? Are there new customers coming in that are exceeding the number of customers that are leaving? Another factor is lifetime value. For example, in the early days of the personal computer industry, a lot of companies flocked to IBM PCs and
Hmm.
Microsoft DOS and Windows computers because they were cheaper than Apple computers. But back in the 2000s, IBM did a study and they found that people that had Macintosh computers, those companies spent 20% less maintaining the computer. I know when I was on a Windows machine, I always had 2 Windows machines on my desk
Yeah.
because I was doing video editing and they are constantly crashing. So I was always assuming the Microsoft position of rebooting one computer while I was getting work done on the other computer. When I switched back to Macintosh, I noticed that the amount of effort that I had to put out to support my own computer went down substantially. So I
Wow.
a longer lifetime value out of the Mac computer versus a Windows computer. Another way of measuring success would be if you're running trials, how many of them are actually paid to convert and continue paying? And then lastly, how much time are people spending using your particular product or your service? That could be a leading indicator for overall customer satisfaction, not only in terms of what the product or service does, but also in terms of being satisfied with how it's doing it.
Perfect. All right. Well, we are almost out of time. So, how what else did you want to try to get in for today? I know we didn't get to finish everything fully, but talking about the measuring success, do anything else you want to add to that?
Well, that's about it. Just an
Okay.
interesting point in trying to put together the content for this session. because we've asked people to write in and send emails asking questions about that they would like me to answer. So we got a few of those, but I went to an AI tool called Perplexity, and I asked it, what questions would you like to ask about product management and product success? And that's where all these questions came from. So then I wrote out the answers in order to be able to put together the sort of the syllabus for this particular podcast.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Well, we got to remind everyone how we reach out to you. Would you mind sharing? Thank you so much. And this is where I lose you again, so I will say it. How does that sound? SpiceCatalyst.com. And of course, you can always email him at dave@spicecatalyst.com. Thank you so much. Sorry, hopefully they'll be fixing the internet soon. Thank you, David.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.